Hello, I'd like to introduce you to James. James is a sufferer of pretty much everything that I've described in my own videos: anxiety, panic attacks, agoraphobia. He was diagnosed by his doctor as having chronic anxiety disorder. He was offered the usual medication method, but chose not to take it. This is James' story.
Hello everyone, my name's James, I'm 25 years old and this is my anxiety story. So in order to give you sort of the full picture of my story, I'll go back to sort of my earliest memories of feeling anxiety symptoms and suffering. So as I said, I'm now 25 years old and my first ever experience with any sort of anxiety was when I was in middle school. So I guess I was about 10 or 11, and in this case the anxiety was a health anxiety. My mum knows this story really well and she always reminds me of this, but I remember when I was about 10 or 11, I ate some sort of hot meal and I ate it too fast. I remember burning the back of my throat and the top of my mouth, and as a result of this I felt like I needed to carry a bottle of water around with me, and this lasted for 6 months. I had this little bottle of water that I would take everywhere with me. If we ever went out, I'd have it by my side in my pocket and I could never be without it. I thought it was normal at the time, but looking back, obviously it was very odd. That was my first ever sort of glimpse of anxiety. Like if I didn't have it with me, I would feel really nervous and on edge. Even at that age, I was a carefree kid. Other than that, my childhood was completely normal. I don't remember any other sort of bouts of anxiety either before that or even after that for a few years. From 10 or 11, where I had that sort of weird stint, I didn't feel any more anxiety until I was about 16, and when I left school, which is when I went through another bout of health anxiety. All through school I was the most sort of normal child. I was never nervous really going to school. I don't have any other memories of being at school and feeling nervous or anxious or anything like that, or panicky. Never had a panic attack when I was at school or anything. But when I left school at 16, whether it was the stress of sort of leaving school, having to figure out what I wanted to do, I went to sixth form, and while I was at sixth form, I went through health anxiety very similar to what I went through when I was about 10 or 11. It was all focused on the throat. I felt like I couldn't swallow. I got to the point where I didn't eat for a few days because I didn't feel like I could take anything down. Couldn't swallow anything. And again, the bottle of water came into it. I had to have this bottle of water with me because I didn't feel I could swallow without it. That lasted probably a month or two, and then I was okay. And then from 16 to sort of my late teens, so 19 coming on 20, I was always sort of a nervous person, slightly anxious, but it never ever stopped me from doing things. I would go out wherever I wanted to. I could go out any time of the day, wherever I wanted to, without anyone, with anyone. Go to the cinema, go to the shopping centre, into the city. I could do anything. I was just as free as a normal person. I started working at a very popular shop in a retail park, and it was very busy. That alone triggered my anxiety a little bit. I remember when it was really busy, I would feel a bit more anxious. At the time, I didn't really know what it was, but I knew that I felt weird and I felt different and very uncomfortable. It wasn't until I became a supervisor at this shop that my anxiety really started to take control. Again, I don't know if it was the pressure and the stress of the job, but whilst I was in that role as a supervisor in the store, my anxiety levels would rise and rise and rise, and it got to the point where just the thought of going to work would make me really nervous, make me really anxious. This is a place that I worked at for 2.5 years, so I was not new there. I'd been there for a while, I knew everybody, but for some reason my anxiety levels were just high. At the time I didn't do a lot of research into it. I didn't see a doctor, I didn't speak to anybody about it. I'm one of these people that suffers with whether I'm ill or whatever, I'll just keep it to myself. I'll always self-suffer. I never ever sort of ask for help or seek medical attention or anything like that. I just kind of suffer myself. Whether that's a good thing or not, I don't know, but that's just the way that I am, and I always have been. And so for a little while I just kind of went with the motions, you know, the sensations, the feelings that I was having. I just kind of went along with them. And I managed to carry on work for a few months. And I remember this is the changing point in my life where this all became too much and got me to the point where I am right now. Is I had a 2-week holiday from work, which I didn't take because of my anxiety. I took it because I had holiday to take. And I remember having to go back, and for some reason I was dreading it. You know, I loved my job. I loved it so much. But for some reason I was dreading going back, and I don't know why. But I remember the car journey there. You know, it was only a sort of a 10-minute drive from where I was staying, and I got halfway and had to stop because while I was driving I had all these sensations that I had before, but like on another level that I'd never experienced before. And I got to work. I was sitting outside in the car park right in front of the store, and I just couldn't bring myself to get out of the car to go in. The sensations were so high, you know, the anxiety, that I was feeling dizzy, my palms were sweaty, like I was just feeling really on edge and really anxious for no reason really. This is a job that I worked for a couple of years now. You know, I've done this over and over again, and yet the anxiety took over, and it won. I left. I went home, and I never returned. That was the last time that I'd ever been to work, was that day. And this was nearly 5 years ago now. 4.5 years, maybe 5 years ago. Which leads me on to the main part of the story, which is me right now and where I've been for the past 4 or 5 years, which is in this horrible rut of anxiety, health anxiety, panic disorder, agoraphobia, which is probably the worst part of it all. Like, my list goes on with the anxieties that I suffer. Now I'm in a place right now where I'm a lot better than I was at the very start of this 4 or 5 year journey that I've been on. The first year or two were an absolute hell. I honestly don't know how I made it through it. You know, I've had a really good sort of close network of friends and family that have got me through, you know, the worst times. But for that first year or two, didn't leave the house. I could probably count on one hand how many times I left that house in that first year or two. From being such an outgoing person that was always like constantly out doing stuff, whether I was driving, whether I was going to the cinema, you know, everyday normal things that everybody else does, I was doing. And then all of a sudden I was this person that couldn't leave my house, you know, without feeling like I was gonna die or pass out, or, you know, the worst was gonna happen. And like, the extreme that you go through when you suffer with this illness is crazy. That it can change your personality. I noticed that I changed. I'm a different person now to what I was. It's an incredible illness, and right as of now, as of today, as I'm recording this, I can go out places, select places. You know, I've kind of got a list of 5 or 6 places where I feel comfortable to go. Most of them are friends or family's houses, which is, you know, they are kind of my extended safe place, if you want to call it. There's a few shops that I can go to, but other than that, I'm pretty much still stuck at home most days. So that is why I'm making this video. This is why this video will be going on the Anxiety United channel, because I want to change all of that. Every day I miss the person that I was. Like, I want to get back to that place, and whether or not I can ever 100% beat sort of the anxiety, I want to be able to live a normal life, even if I have to live it with the anxiety. I'm just so sick now of living the way I am. It's horrible. It's a nightmare. For those of you that are watching that suffer with very similar things, whether you're agoraphobic, whether you suffer from panic disorder, or all of the above, you know exactly how debilitating and awful it can be. It's It's one hell of an invisible illness. You know, you can't see it, but my God, if you're living it, it is awful. So I sympathise with anyone that's watching, and I hope that this video and any video that comes after this does help others, because there's not many videos online from other people that are suffering. People don't seem to make videos. Obviously, you know, that maybe they're anxious about making videos, maybe they're too shy, maybe they haven't got the camera to do it, but that is what this is going to be all about. I just kind of want to share my story. Obviously I haven't gone into as much detail as I would have liked to. There's lots of other things that I've kind of gone through, but maybe that'll come up in sort of podcasts or anything that we decide to do from now on. But that is kind of my main story. I hope you guys sympathise, and I hope some of you that are also suffering get something out of this, and whatever comes from this and after this, I hope it benefits some people, and if it helps at least one person out, then that is a job well done. So that is me, that is my story, that is kind of where I'm at right now. Hopefully, fingers crossed, I'll be able to beat this thing. Yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching.
Now, I've spoken quite a number of times to James via Skype, and we've talked a lot about exposure therapy. And while we both agree exposure therapy is essential, it's always going to be the toughest part of recovery from an anxiety disorder. To recondition the mind to these anxiety-provoking situations, to carry on regardless, to stay with these feelings and be in the present moment. Now, James and I are going to try something different. Seeing as I experience anxiety in a very similar way to James, I've asked James to create a list of 5 things he'd like to tackle using exposure therapy, like an exposure therapy stepladder. And whilst myself and James live many miles apart, we're going to tackle these things together. We'll be taking James's first item from his list, and we'll be completing it whilst on film. And then we'll repeat this task, and repeat, and repeat. You get the idea. We'll be in contact using our mobile phones during these tasks, so we'll be able to help each other out. If I start to wobble, James can help steady me. If James experiences high anxiety, then I'll help talk him down. And if we both panic, then we'll just have to ride through those feelings. And once we've completed each task, and we will complete each task, we'll have video evidence for both ourselves and you to show that we did survive and we did complete these tasks. Neither of us can really afford private therapy, and neither of us have that much faith in the underfunded NHS offerings of cognitive behaviour therapy. So we're going to try and do something about our condition ourselves. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. So if you'd like to stick with us and follow our journey, hopefully, towards recovery, click subscribe, share this video, let's make a series. This is our journey.